Hey there, welcome to the next lesson in my course on creating 5-year financial models in Excel. If you haven't seen the previous videos, you can find links to them in the description below. And if you want to download the Excel files and follow along, you can do so on the first link in the description below. Now let's get back to Excel. In the last video, we finished our Minty Tools model. Now let's go ahead and add one of the most important summary tabs, which will be our revenues and margins. I'm going to grab the core business one. Move for copy, create a copy, and I'll rename it to revenue and margins. Change it here to revenue and margins. And here it's just going to be Minty. And get rid of everything down here. And this is going to be our revenue. Here we want to list our model elements and show the revenue for each one of them. Go to the config tab and just grab them from here. Place them over here. And I'm also gonna add Minty Tools model. Here we'll use the same if formula to check if the respective item is switched on or off. Gonna be config Minty holding. If this equals on, I'm actually gonna fix the row so we can then, after we build the structure for the revenue, we can reuse the same structure for the EBITDA. At least all the ifs will be linked. So if $10 equals on, then give me my corporate tab revenue for 20. Otherwise, give me 0. For Minty Def, want to do the same thing. If config Minty Def F4 to fix the row equals on, then give me the revenue for Minty Def for 2020. Otherwise, give me 0. For Minty Pipeline, same thing. If this F4 equals on, then give me the pipeline revenue for 2020, otherwise give me 0. For Minty Solids, if config Minty Solids F4 equals on, give me the revenue for 2020 and Minty Solids, otherwise give me 0. Same thing for the Rockcode acquisition. Equals to on, give me Rockcode acquisition 2020 revenue, but this is the pro forma view. I want to be able to rely on the selection here. So let's select it from the active scenario. Otherwise, give me 0. Our acquisitions pipeline, if config our acquisitions pipeline F4 equals on, give me the revenue for 2020 from our acquisitions pipeline. Otherwise, give me 0. And for Minty Tools, we don't have this one in the config tab. So I'm just gonna copy this line, rename it to Minty Tools, and have the same formula. If config Minty Tools for calendar year 2020 is set to on, then grab the revenue for 2020, otherwise give me 0. Let's select all of those, format them as numbers, and copy them over to the side. And here we can have our total revenue. Gonna bold it and add a top and a thick bottom border. And then this is the sum. Carry it over to the side, and this is our revenue summary. The idea is that if we come here and let's say we decide that there will be no acquisitions pipeline, this will be 0, and our revenue will be reflective of acquisitions pipeline being excluded. Switch it back to on. What we can do now is we can copy this and paste it so that we link it to the EBITDA and have the EBITDA value summarized as well. But what I want to do is I want to paste it in the right spot, if that makes sense, because our references to the config file are all fixed, but our references to the individual tabs are not. So if we copy this over here, it will just move all those references by a few rows. But what we can do, and it's a little hack, is we can say, okay, this is 108, row 108, and my EBITDA is on 124, which is 16 rows between those two. So if I have my revenue here on row 10, I want it to go to 26. I'm just gonna grab that, and my 9 will go to 25. So if I just paste it over here, we should get our EBITDA. It's pretty easy to check. I can just say, okay, corporate EBITDA 27,415. That's it, because now this is linking 16 rows below where it was linking up here. Let's check one other, acquisitions pipeline, 161,879. Okay, we can now remove the empty space between those, and that's our summary. But we want to be able to switch between the pro forma and from date of acquisition views for the rock code acquisition, and we also want to be able to switch between the two assumption sets for Minty tools. So what we can do is we can grab this, copy it to the revenue and margins, and paste it. We can also go to Minty tools, grab this one, copy it, and paste it here as well. Just gonna position them to right click to be able to select it. Just gonna position them like that. Make them the same width. And what I want to do here is this is going to be rock code, and this is going to be Minty tools. Adjust this one a bit bigger. Okay, and if we check those, if we go to format controls, you'll see that because we did this exercise where we went to a different sheet and then went back to the sheet so that we'll get the sheet name here. Now that I copied it here, it still links to the correct sheet. So theoretically, it should work. And if we switch to date of acquisition, and you see that our rock code acquisition numbers for 2020 to 2022 disappeared. Same thing here. If we switch to realistic, you can see that our revenues and our EBITDA drop significantly based on our select. That was our revenue and margin summary. Now let's grab our core business, make a copy of it, and we'll build our consolidated view. This is going to be my consolidated view for the whole Minty group. And we just need to change the formula here. And because we already have the core business being a consolidation of dev, pipeline, and solids, we can just either leave those here and add the rest, or because dev, pipeline, and solids models all get aggregated in core business, and this is based off whether they're switched on or off, we can just grab this as a whole, and if something is switched off, it won't participate here, and subsequently it won't participate here. So we can just say that this is equal to our core business revenue directly, plus if go to config our corporate for 2020, fix the row is equal to on, then grab the corporate revenue for 2020, otherwise grab 0, plus if, and skip those three, if our rock code acquisition, fix the row is equal to on, then grab our rock code acquisition revenue for 2020 from the selected scenario, otherwise 0, and I fixed this one by mistake, so let's just unfix it. Otherwise 0, plus if our acquisitions pipeline for 2020 is equal to on, then give me acquisitions pipeline revenue for 2020, otherwise give me 0, plus config, and we only have Minty tools. but we need the if. So if this F4 equals on, give me our Minty Tools 2020 revenue, otherwise give me 0. And that's our formula. We can just replicate this to the side. And for some reason, once again, the Minty Tools one is fixed. I'm just gonna remove the $signs up here. And then we can copy it over to the side, and that's our revenue. Let's check it with our revenue and margins. Yep, it's the same. And we can just grab this line and copy it over every place where we're drawing data. And we get our consolidated view summary. So the idea is that now, let's say we go to config and we say, okay, we plan to sell MintyDev. I'm gonna switch that to off, and we're also not doing the Rockcode acquisition. MintyDev being switched to off flows into the core business, and from there it flows into the consolidated view, and also the Rockcode acquisition being switched off also flows through to the consolidated view. Our revenue is 1.5, and if you go to revenue and margins, you don't see MintyDev and you don't see Rockcode, and we're at 1.5 revenue. And the best part is that by doing this config tab and taking the time to write those ifs everywhere, we ensure that we have a central place where we can switch things off and on. And this would be replicated throughout our whole model. Bring those back. Another thing I'd often do in such cases is I'll get the total revenue here from my console view just to make sure that everything is linked properly. Copy it to the side and have the difference between those two. I'm gonna color this red for difference and I'm gonna make those green. I didn't make the other ones green because this is usually the tab that I might copy and paste in a presentation, and it's better to have all the numbers be black, but I can have this here and just go to data group and hide it. And then we can have the same thing for our EBITDA, and actually this needs to be changed. Those are grouped as well, and all I need to do here is link the EBITDA line, copy it over to the side, and those reconcile as well. We usually leave those open, and whenever I have to copy something and paste it in a presentation or simply present the tab on my screen, I'll just hide those to keep it more concise and to keep cleaner. We built our consolidated view, but there's something that's missing, and that's we need to make some eliminations, because right now, if you go to the consolidated view, you see that we have intercompany receivables and we also have intercompany payables. Same way we have investments up here, and we have the equity aggregated across all entities, and the consolidated view should only present the equity of the parent company. Also see we still have all those nodes down here, which I'll just remove, and I'm also going to remove them for the core business. Let's create a new tab, maybe over here. Now this one is too complex. Let's just copy the core business one, move for copy, create a copy right here, and just call it eliminations. It's going to be a really simple one where we're not going to go into too much detail in terms of how do we properly eliminate balances and transactions as part of a consolidation process, because this really doesn't move the needle that much. And I've rarely seen complex eliminations being done at strategic level model. Usually I would just look at the numbers and say, okay, it's pretty obvious that these and this are the same. Does it really change anything? No. So in most of the times, I wouldn't even bother doing any eliminations, but for the sake of the exercise, let's just create those real quick. So I'll need the 3 statements down below here. So let's just add a bunch of new lines, change that to eliminations, is to Minty. Let's copy our header assumptions. Here we want our intercompany receivables and our intercompany payables. And if we go through the models, we'll see that the corporate entity has receivables and the payables are sitting in the 3 subsidiaries. So here, here, and in solids. Oh, there's nothing in solids, so only those 2. We can say that intercompany receivables, we're going to add the if as well. If corporate for 20 is equal to on, then give me corporate, my intercompany receivables. Format those. This is going to be corporate. Make them green. And then for intercompany payables, if config def is equal to on, give me the intercompany payables in def, otherwise 0, plus if the config pipeline is equal to on, give me the pipeline intercompany payables, otherwise give me 0. I'm taking a bit of a shortcut here because I know where those balances are, but in a more uncertain scenario where inputs can change quite a lot, I would just, instead of having only corporate here, I would just link all the entities. From here on out, because I always model payables and receivables, their intercompany to remain the same, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but in some circumstances, you might have revenue in one entity coming from revenue from the other entity. Then you also need to eliminate those, so decrease revenue and decrease the expense in the other entity. But we don't have data for that here, so I'll just eliminate those 2 to clean up the balance sheet a bit, and that would be enough in most circumstances. So let me just clean here a bit. And my cash flow statement as well. Okay, and this opening balance will just be the previous closing balance. Copy that to the side. And now what we want to do is we want to eliminate those. So we want to decrease receivables by this amount and decrease payables by this amount. Just go to receivables minus my receivables amount. Copy that. And then payables minus my payables amount. And copy that to the side. And that's our adjustment here. The next thing we want to adjust is we want to eliminate investments and share capital, equity. So for investments, we are recognizing investments in a few places. We don't have any investments in Minty Tools, nothing in acquisition pipeline. I think we have investments in corporate. Here they are. We are also recognizing investment in the Rockcode acquisition to make sure that we have something to negate their equity towards. So we can just sum those 2 once again. Our investments will have if config corporate is equal to on, just give us then corporate investments for 2020, otherwise give me 0, plus if config our Rockcode acquisition is equal to on, then give me the Rockcode acquisition investments for 2020, otherwise give me 0. So we can copy that over to the side. And I'm not actually going to calculate the share capital here because my total share capital is more than my investments because I have the share capital of the holding entity in there as well. So just use the investments and deduct those both from investment and for my share capital. And just color them green as well. And what we'll do is we'll decrease our investments by this much. And we will decrease our equity capital by this much as well. I'm noticing that my investments stay the same, although I recognize new investment. I can see here that once again, this has been fixed. Make sure you pay attention. And now if I copy it, you see that it jumps to 20 million when we acquire the Rockcode entity. Now we can link this as if it's a normal three-statement model within our consolidated view. We have nothing in the income statement and in the cash flow statement, and the overall effect is 0 on the balance sheet. But it would just clean it up a bit, decrease the total assets and total liabilities and shareholders' equity amounts, and make it look cleaner. Come to config, eliminations. Copy that here. So once again, in the console view, plus if config 2020 F4 to fix the row is equal to on, then grab my revenue for 2020 from the eliminations tab, otherwise give me 0. Copy this to the side and now start repasting it everywhere across our 3 statements. There's no need to do it in the income statement in our particular case, but I prefer to just do it everywhere. And you can see the change here. So our intercompany receivables vanished and our investments vanished as well. And our intercompany payables vanished as well. Repaste this here. And here. And you might have noticed that although our investments got cleared, our equity is actually not clearing correctly. We have 50 million of equity in our corporate entity. And for some reason, our consolidated view shows 55 for the past 3 years. And the problem here comes with the pro forma view for Rockcode acquisition, because we're recognizing an investment from 23 that we can eliminate against the equity capital that we are acquiring. But the problem is that we still had this equity, but we didn't have the investment. And this is where you can go down the rabbit hole trying to figure this out and fix it. But the simple solution is that nobody really looks at pro forma balance sheets. It just makes 0 sense to assume that everything that this company was before would come into your balance sheet. It's a good exercise to look at it in terms of income statement, just to see the level you could have been performing at if this company was a part of your group. But in terms of the balance sheet, it just makes 0 sense. So if we switch that to date of acquisition and we go back to our consolidated view, you can now see that our share capital looks as it's supposed to look. We don't have any intercompany payables and receivables because they've been eliminated, and our investments have also been eliminated. Let's create our valuation tab. I'm going to grab one of the tabs, move for copy, create a copy. I'm just going to put it right before the consolidated view. This is going to be my valuation. Just going to get rid of everything and start fresh. So just grab one of the orange headers from anywhere, like here, paste it, and I'm gonna say Minty Group Business Valuation. And it's gonna be split into 2 categories. So the most common practice for valuing a company is a multiple of either EBITDA or revenue. And in some cases, you might split the business and you say, okay, this is a more traditional EBITDA-based business that I want to value at a multiple on EBITDA. And then this part is more like cutting edge AI, data, technology, stuff like that. and I'm going to value it at a multiple of revenue. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So we're going to grab all the traditional business, the core business, the acquisitions pipeline, the Rockcoat acquisition, and value those at EBITDA. And then our Minty Tools, our cutting edge new service, we're going to value that at a multiple on revenue. Let's create a header here, and it's going to be core business plus acquisitions. Here, I'll need EBITDA. I'll actually try a trick. I want to get EBITDA, but I don't want to have to relink all those formulas. So I'll try to copy that and just place it in the same place, row 22, and see if all the references remain correct, and they did. So now I have all the ifs ready here, and I don't need to type them again. Delete some space. I actually want this to be up here. I don't want this here. EBITDA. I'm gonna remove the background color, and let's just in the bottom border. And I also want to indent those to make it look a bit better. Okay, below this we'll have our EBITDA multiple. And we have decided internally that an EBITDA multiple of 8 is something that we're comfortable with. And remember, we can just go to Control-1 or right-click and format cells, go to Custom, pick the format with the 2 digits after the decimal point, then space X. Now we can just type 8, and you'd usually create comps analysis, which is just getting comparable companies or deals or looking at the industry to figure out what's a typical multiple for a similar business. After we have our total EBITDA and our EBITDA multiple, we can have our implied enterprise value, which is equal to EBITDA multiplied by the EBITDA multiple. Copy that over to the side, and you see that I still have Minty Tools here. So just gonna remove this from here, and this is my implied enterprise value for my core business plus my acquisitions. Then I want to do the same thing for the rest, for Minty Tools, my new cutting edge technology, but it's gonna be valued at revenue, and just gonna leave Minty Tools here. Remove those two. Gonna be my total revenue. I'll still leave the total because I might end up switching another acquisition or something like that to be part of the revenue portion of our valuation. Here, what I need to do is I need to link the Minty Tools revenue. So I'm gonna say if config Minty Tools equals on, then give me the revenue for 2020 for Minty Tools. Copy that over to the side, and I get the revenue. And because it's so cutting edge, I'm gonna have a revenue multiple of 10, which is pushing it quite hard because you see my whole pre-existing business plus all the future acquisitions, I'm valuing it at 2.3 billion. But we are so into our new service that we believe over the next 5 years, it's gonna become much more valuable than all the other parts of the business. And that's absolutely acceptable if you can support this claim by making your investors believe that this is actually achievable. After we've calculated those two, let's calculate our total implied enterprise value. And this is gonna be bold. Want to separate it a bit, make it more visible. It's gonna be equal to our implied enterprise value up here and down here. Copy that over to the side. We then have the cash and debt. Just to save some time, I'm not gonna go ahead and type in all the ifs. You can try that on your own. The idea is to add together all the cash balances across all elements. Just gonna link to my console view for the purpose of keeping it a bit easier. Copy it over. And same for debt. Just gonna link to the consolidated view, but you can go ahead and write the if formulas to calculate it based on what's turned off or on in the config tab. I'll link my 2023 debt, format it, and carry it over to the side. And from here, what we can get is our total implied equity value, which is usually where we aim with the purchase price. This is going to be equal to total implied enterprise value minus, I'm going to open brackets, and in the brackets, I'm going to calculate net debt, which is debt minus cash. And that's my total implied equity value. It's also a good thing to have it in your model, even if it's not needed as an output for a specific presentation or an investor update or something like that. It just gives you a really nice picture of where the business is heading based off of your plan, and you can just quickly figure out if it looks too aggressive or something like that. Now let's create a revenue step-up chart. Just gonna add a new tab here. Let's use our apply formatting. This is gonna be my revenue step-up chart. Our worksheet name will be revenue step up. In the end, this is USD in thousands. And I also want to add a header. Here it is. Let me zoom it in a bit so it's more visible. And we're going to change those here a bit. So we'll have our steps. We'll have the amount for each step. And then I'm going to add 4 more columns that I'm going to explain as we move through them. So we'll have blank, ends, up, and total. Just copy the formatting over here. Our steps, we want to first show the run rate, calendar year 2022. Then we want to show our core business growth, our Rockcode acquisition, which is like our contemplated imminent acquisition, our acquisitions pipeline for further down the road, and our Minty Tools new services. Then we want to show the run rate for 2023, which is going to be a combination of the run rate of 2022 with all those added on top. And then we'll have the core business growth again. We're not going to have the Rockcode acquisition anymore, but we're going to have those 3, which I can copy there. And this is going to be my run rate for 2024. So the idea here is to visualize how each of those components would get us from our run rate for 2022 to our revenue run rate for 2023, all the way to our run rate for 2024. Let me just format those a bit. So like that, and load it. I'm going to grab my format painter, have that same here and here. And I'm actually going to present that in millions, make it look better in the graphic. My amount for my run rate is my 2022 revenue. So I'm going to go to revenues and margin. And for 2022, I'm not going to select directly the total revenue, because if I switch to pro forma, this will also add my Rockcode acquisition. So I'm just going to sum those 3, press enter, and that's my number here. And I'm actually going to select this whole thing, format it as numbers, and I'm going to switch it to millions in the visualization itself so we can go back to thousands here. My idea was to just use the format cells to round it up to millions, but then it would be harder to track if the numbers match. Then our core business growth will be the difference between our 23 and 22 run rate for the core business. So what we can do is we can go to our core business tab and just say 23 revenue minus 22 revenue, enter, and that's it. Our Rockcode acquisition is going to add the total amount for 2023. So I'm just going to go to revenue and margins and select the 2023 revenue for Rockcode. then my acquisitions pipeline is also going to be equal to my 2023 revenue here. And Minty Tools going to be equal to Minty Tools over here. Okay, then my run rate should be the sum of all of those. And this should also match my 2023 revenue. And it does. Then we need the core business growth again. And this is from 23 to 24. So I'll go to core business, revenue in 24 minus revenue in 23. For the acquisitions pipeline, we want to include the growth in the acquisitions pipeline itself, but we also want to include the growth in the Rockcoat acquisition. I'm going to go to revenue and margins. I'm going to say Rockcoat in 24 minus in 23 plus acquisitions pipeline in 24 minus in 23. Okay, and my Minty Tools growth is going to be 24 minus 23. And we should now be, if we make this total, at 1.150, which matches the one we have here. So that's the first part. And now we're going to split those numbers into 4 different categories that we're going to use as different time series, because we want to show each run rate as a column from the top. Then we want to show each of those steps as like getting on top of that. Then we want to show the next full run rate and then show the next ones on top of that. Our blanks is the amounts that we're going to be showing below each of those steps. And the blank here is going to be this one. And then the blank below is going to be this plus this. And this is going to be all the way to here. We're not showing any blanks here. We want this to start from the bottom. Then this is going to be this. This is going to be this plus this. And down here as well. Then our ends will show us the full columns that only present the 3 run rates. This one equals to this one equals to this one. Then our ups is our different steps that we're showing, so they'll just be equal to those. And our totals, which we want to show above each step, are going to be equal to our blank plus our step up. And those are all the numbers we need to build the chart. What I'll do now is just grab all the steps, and I'm going to hold Control and grab those 4 columns. Then I'm going to go to Insert, Column, Stacked Column. And here it's really important that we order them in this way, because that way we can see that the blanks here at the bottom. Then on top of that, we have the ups, which is each of the next steps. Then we have our ends here, which are our total run rates. And those at the top are our totals, and we'll only use those to add labels for the total, so they won't be visible. Now let's go ahead and make the chart look good. So our chart title, can just select the title, go to the formula here, and just make it equal to our title. Then let's just expand this a bit. It's easier to see everything. I don't need those here. And then let me just right click, format data series. It doesn't matter which series. So I make the gap width a bit smaller. So let's say 25% should look pretty good. Then let's start formatting. So for this series here, which shows us our 3 run rates, the ends from here, I want to add data labels. And I'm going to grab the data labels, go to the number options here. And in our format code, I'm just going to type £, comma, pound, 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 and then just 1 comma. And by doing so, I'm going to transfer this to be shown into thousands, which would effectively make it in millions because we're already working in thousands. Add, and you can see how everything was rounded to millions. I want this to be my orange, and I'm gonna bold those. Then my blanks, I don't want them to be visible, so I'm just gonna switch them to no fill. And this would allow me to see, okay, my run rate, each step on top of that, the new run rate, each step on top of that, and the new run rate. I'm gonna make the steps my dark blue. I'm gonna add labels to them as well. Select the labels, make them white, bold them, and I'm also gonna apply the same number formatting. I'm gonna go here, pound, comma, pound, 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 comma, add, and now they're also shown in millions. Next, let's add our totals. I'm gonna select the totals here, add labels, make sure that they're inside the base because I want them to be next to the steps. And once again, change the formatting and bold them. And now we can just grab the totals, switch that to no fill as well, and we have our step up chart. Now the problem is that it goes all the way up to 2.5 billion and we only want it to go up to 1.2 or something like that. And the reason for that is all those invisible bars up here. So what we can do is we can grab this and just say format axis. And instead of 2.5 E6, which is billions, we can just have 1.2. Enter, and now our axis goes all the way to 1.2 billion. And this is now shown in thousands, and this is shown in millions. So what we want to do is we want to grab the axis, go to number, and just make sure that we have the same format. And the only thing left to do is with the chart selected, I'm going to go to insert, text, just write in here and just say NUSDM so that it's evident that it's in millions. I'm gonna put it, say, up here, bold it, make it italic, and make it a lot smaller. Okay, that looks pretty good. And that's it. We have our revenue step-up chart, which is a really good way to visualize how we're going to get from our current run rate all the way up to the double, pretty much, run rate in 2024, breaking it down into different aspects that have influence over the business. And you can also remove this down here and make it expand a bit more. In the next video, we're gonna look at adding a table of contents as a covered tab to our model. Thank you for watching another part of the course. As soon as the next video is uploaded, you'll find it right here. By the way, if you can spare a minute, I would love to hear your thoughts on the course and whether it's living up to your expectations. If you're watching on the website, you can do so by the feedback button up there. And if you're watching on YouTube, just drop a comment down below. Thank you.